you having no boundaries actually benefits other people, and why it's actually because of this, why it's important to have boundaries. And this comes from my own experience of a lot of childhood trauma and me only learning about boundaries when I was going to therapy. And I realized like my family like emotionally blackmails me when I'm not doing something that they want. You know you have no boundaries when other people's needs go in front of your own needs, or when you consider setting boundaries, it's conflicting because you realize your survival mechanism is trying to integrate with other people's needs. Your survival mechanism is putting other people's needs ahead of your own needs, and so you buy your own abandonment that happened to you without your reasoning because you were a child. And this can come from actual physical abandonment of actually being found on the streets like I was when I was like 3 years old. And your abandonment wound can be inflicted by an actual emotional abandonment, which comes from having no boundaries, and people, your caretakers, using emotional manipulation to make you think, oh, wrong to have boundaries, like you're a bad person to set boundaries, and that you learn that in order to have emotional safety, you had to put other people's needs in front of yours. So you learned self-abandonment. How it benefits others by you not having boundaries is that other people's needs are going to come first. By you not having boundaries, you open up full-on access to other people manipulating you. You not having boundaries, don't get to say no to things you don't want to go to because you don't have any boundaries. You have no say in what you're okay with and what you're not. And if you have learned to not have boundaries, and when you actually start setting boundaries, you see a lot of manipulation firsthand, because people won't be used to you advocating for yourself, and they're used to telling you what you're okay with and what's not okay with you. I don't have any boundaries, so that gives everyone else access to my energy, to me, to where my energy goes. I learned about this because I went to therapy because I thought I was the problem. I was having panic attacks. People were telling me I was a bad person because I was starting to have, my panic attacks were getting so bad, my anxiety was getting so bad that I couldn't do like family activities, and I couldn't be part of family activities. And then it became worse. I realized I was being blackmailed, emotionally blackmailed, when I decided to be like, no, I don't want to do this, like, I'm sorry. And literally my whole entire family was like, you're, as if I was the attribute to the family staying together, and I'm not. Like, as that would make me have some kind of self-importance and feel like I'm part of something. Brother even said, like, you're the cause for our mom drinking so much, and she drank the same amount as she's always drinking. Like, you're delusional. Broke down the whole system, and so then it opened the access to everyone. As in, I did start setting boundaries and being like, if you want access to this individual, because there was a lot of my family wanted access to like my boyfriend at the time and his kids, but I mean, I wasn't the mom. And I was like, they were like building this relationship, and I was like, and I always felt like my parents weren't really building a relationship with me. They were getting to know me, so I really felt uber abandoned. And you know what? I realized I made a boundary of like, you know, if you want access to them, you're gonna have to actually start a relationship with me. That boundary created a fucking my dad, even my grandma, even my brother was like putting this family was held together by you. Like fucking bullshit. It's like literal emotional blackmail and trying to make me feel bad for putting myself first and trying to take care of my mental health. And you would think setting a boundary of like, hey, I want a relationship with you, but you consistently choose other people over me. So that was really difficult. But another factor that will tell you that you have no boundaries is when people have access to your privacy when you don't want them. I remember there are many occurrences when I was a child, my parents would take out my door, which I think, thinking about it now and working with children, I think is the most like the best example for boundaries, because it's like you literally have access to taking away someone's like private space and they have no control. So the punishment is you literally have no private space in this family, and we can take it away because we are your parents and we're there to protect you, guide you, and traumatize you again. And then another one is, I remember my mom coming in and I was a teenager, and I went into my room and I saw her looking for something. She didn't see me behind her, and then so I was just watching her and I was like, what are you looking for? And I got really angry because I was like, oh, you're looking for my journal? Because I was more, out of all my siblings, I'm more quieter, more private, but I journaled a lot. And that was the only access my parents had to like my true feelings, and it made me realize like I have no privacy, like, and that's a boundary. Like physical boundary of a parent taking away your door is a boundary, because that's a child's, like, their room is their way of like being able to have a space where they can decorate how they want, can express themselves how they want. They have a space to get into when they feel extremely insecure and they just need to express their authentic frustration or their authentic feelings without judgment or shame. The literal physical boundaries, I was told physical boundaries aren't okay, and my own emotional privacy was endangered because I discovered like my parents looked at my journals, and so then I actually, as a teenager, I then put my journals on my computer. If you have a hard time setting boundaries because there's a sense of shame, there's a sense of like, oh, I should be open with everyone and I'm a giving person, give back to yourself. You're allowed to give back to yourself, and actually setting boundaries is healthy for other people because it tells them what you're okay with and what you're not. And I was never taught that. When I did start learning that, I realized, oh, this isn't okay, because then it cuts off control that person had in your life, where they were allowed to do whatever the fuck they want. And so boundaries actually help other people to know what your limits are. Boundaries are actually good because it forms a healthy, happy relationship where you create a dynamic where you're like, this is what I'm okay with and this is what I'm not. You'll know when people are not okay with it because they say things like, oh, you set all these boundaries and you think, but then when we try to, then you don't do them. But I mean, granted, if you actually don't, but like, look at your own actions. Like, are you still going to the family events because you know that's what's important to your family, but one of your parents is like blaming you? You're not a bad person for setting boundaries. Obviously it's healthy for you because you will know your limits and you're able to then be like, okay, like this is my limit and now I need time for myself, or this is how much time I'm willing to give you and I want to help you out, but this is all I can offer you, without like sabotaging my own health, my own mental health, my own mental capacity to function. And you not having boundaries benefits other people because they can puppet you, they can use you. You're just a tool. If someone is just using you and they're not actually creating a relationship and connection, that's not, you're not creating a relationship. You're not allowed to be your authentic person, because once you start being your authentic person, the people in your life will not like that because they're used to you just doing whatever the fuck they want to do, and that's not healthy. And I think my trouble with having no boundaries is I learned like, oh, I need to martyr, giving myself so much that I completely deprive myself. It's so helpful. I'm such a giving person, and that's a toxic trait. That's what I learned about all of this, is setting boundaries. That's actually toxic, because you give so much of yourself that then your abandonment issues come up because you're not giving back to yourself, and those people that you're giving to aren't going to give to you. Other people benefit you from having no boundaries as they get what they want without giving back to you. They make excuses for themselves.